In a society where outward appearances and immense wealth were often considered the pinnacle of success, Babe Paley rose to prominence as a paragon of poise and sophistication. Renowned as one of the most breathtaking women of the 20th century, her influence went far beyond her striking beauty. She possessed a natural elegance, perpetually enhanced by her refined fashion sense. Indeed, Babe famously mixed high-end designer pieces with costume jewelry, proving her flair for inventive style. The daughter of esteemed neurosurgeon Dr. Harvey Cushing and socialite Catherine Cushing, she was introduced to society from a young age, setting the stage for her life in the public eye. Her tenure as an editor at Vogue further cemented her reputation for impeccable taste, and she was repeatedly recognized on best-dressed lists that celebrated her effortless grace. Yet, beneath the polished exterior, Babe Paley's existence was bound by the expectations of a world that prized surface perfection above all else. As the wife of media titan William S. Paley, she was thrust into a privileged but demanding social sphere where every glance and gesture was scrutinized. Over time, her circle grew to include the witty and enigmatic Truman Capote, who famously labeled her and a select group of other high society women as his swans. Adored by the tabloids and welcomed by the most exclusive social circles, Babe's life seemed charmed from the outside. However, the unrelenting pursuit of beauty and affluence came with a heavy emotional cost, one that manifested in loneliness and the pressures to maintain an unflawed image. This narrative delves into Babe Paley's final years, marked by personal turmoil, a complex relationship with Capote, and a poignant struggle with illness, and reveals how her solitary passing not only ended the life of a celebrated style icon, but also ushered out a glamorous era defined by rigid social codes and outward perfection. Babe Paley, born Barbara Babe Cushing on July 5, 1915 in Boston, Massachusetts, arrived in the world already poised for a life in privileged circles. Her father, Dr. Harvey Williams Cushing, was a pioneering neurosurgeon often credited as the father of modern neurosurgery, while her mother, Catherine Stone Crowell Cushing, came from a wealthy lineage that deeply influenced Babe's early upbringing. She was the youngest of three sisters, following Mary Benedict Minnie Cushing and Elizabeth Betsy Cushing, both of whom would also eventually marry into powerful families. Minnie wed Vincent Astor of the prominent Astor lineage, and Betsy married James Roosevelt II, son of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, before later forming a notable alliance with John Hay Whitney. Growing up in Boston, Babe was introduced from an early age to the refined manners and social expectations of America's upper crust. Her natural inclination for style and poise was evident even in her youth, traits she further developed in private schools and exclusive social environments. By the time she embarked on her own career as an editor at Vogue, she had honed a flair for fashion that positioned her as one of the era's most stylish figures. Yet despite her evident talents and the fertile ground for professional success, Babe had been raised to believe that securing a prosperous marriage was her foremost aspiration. This deeply rooted conviction would shape the course of her life, propelling her into a world where outward appearances, lavish parties, and high-status connections were often prized above genuine personal fulfillment. Babe Paley, born Barbara. Babe Cushing built a formidable reputation in the world of fashion and style, initially through her editorial role at Vogue, and later as a cultural tastemaker whose name became synonymous with timeless elegance. She joined Vogue in the late 1930s, immersing herself in the magazine's fast-paced environment during a time when American fashion was expanding its global reach. While she was not Vogue's lead editor, She brought a unique perspective to the publication, often suggesting distinctive pairings of high-end couture with more accessible garments and accessories. This ability to blend luxury with everyday style quickly garnered attention among her peers and readers, marking her as a fresh, modern voice in an industry dominated by strict style conventions. Over the next few years, Babe honed her talent for recognizing and amplifying emerging trends. She showed an uncanny knack for identifying which silhouettes, fabrics, and colors would resonate with American women, ensuring that her editorial input shaped more than just the magazine's photo spreads. Her work at Vogue placed her squarely at the center of the fashion conversation, granting her an influential platform that would become a springboard for the broader public recognition she would eventually enjoy. Even after she stepped away from her editorial duties, Babe remained an active figure in shaping the aesthetic of mid-century America. Her personal style, marked by thoughtful coordination of luxe items with understated costume pieces, elevated her from an industry insider to a nationally recognized fashion authority. The press routinely covered her outfits, and she became a regular on Best Dressed lists, ultimately earning a place in the International Best Dressed List Hall of Fame. This honor reflected more than her clothing choices. It symbolized her talent for interpreting style in a way that felt both aspirational and accessible. Beyond her direct contributions to fashion, Babe used her influence to support cultural and philanthropic endeavors, especially those centered on art, design, and charitable causes. By lending her endorsement or presence to these events, she helped draw attention to exhibits, fundraisers, and organizations that benefited from the spotlight her name attracted. Over time, her consistent demonstration of impeccable taste, combined with a gracious public persona, reinforced her status as one of the era's most definitive style figures. Babe Paley's career was rooted in a distinct ability to marry editorial insight with personal creativity. Whether selecting wardrobe pieces for a Vogue feature or curating her own closet, she displayed a sharp eye for what was fashionable, flattering, and fresh. Her legacy endures in the way later generations of fashion editors, socialites, and influencers continue to celebrate the interplay of high-end couture with carefully chosen accents, an approach that Babe helped pioneer and elevate to an art form. Babe Paley's first marriage in 1938 was to Stanley Grafton Mortimer Jr., an heir to the Standard Oil fortune. Although they appeared to be an ideal society couple at the outset, their union faced mounting pressures from the high society world they inhabited. Together they had 2 children, Amanda J. Mortimer, born in 1939, and Stanley Grafton Mortimer III, born in 1942, but their relationship ultimately unraveled. By 1946, Babe had divorced Mortimer, setting the stage for the next phase of her life. In July 1947, she married William S. Paley, the influential founder and chief architect of the Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS. Despite his towering presence in the entertainment industry, Bill Paley was known for his egotistical and often philandering ways. Like many of their upper-crust peers, Babe's decision to marry Bill was motivated less by devotion than by the allure of his enormous wealth and social standing. Entrenched in a lifestyle where every gesture was scrutinized and every outfit discussed in the press, she found herself regarded more as a treasured ornament than a beloved partner. Babe Paley's daily existence was an elaborate, meticulously choreographed performance, driven by an almost compulsive need for perfection. The roots of this relentless pursuit lay partly in a traumatic car accident she suffered in 1934, which resulted in her needing to wear false teeth for the rest of her life. Despite this deeply personal hardship, Babe seamlessly incorporated even her most vulnerable aspects into her polished exterior. Her mornings began long before her husband, Bill Paley, awoke. Rising hours earlier, she would carefully apply her makeup and style her hair, creating an impeccable appearance that met the impossibly high standards she had set for herself, and that others had come to expect. Her quest for perfection extended far beyond her personal grooming. Every social engagement was treated as a performance in itself, with Babe meticulously planning her outfits, accessories, and even her demeanor to suit the occasion. She was a master of effortless sophistication, blending couture designs with understated pieces to create looks that were both innovative and timeless. Her influence was so profound that fashion editors coined the term Babe Paley chic to describe her unique style. Yet beneath this veneer of elegance, her life was riddled with insecurity and a profound loneliness that stemmed from her relationship with Bill Paley. As the chairman of CBS, Bill was a man accustomed to control and adoration. His charm and professional accomplishments made him a magnetic figure in public, but in private, he could be cold and dismissive. Known for his many affairs, Bill treated Babe more as a trophy than a partner, seeing her beauty as another asset to showcase rather than an expression of her individuality. Despite her social triumphs and the admiration she received from peers and the media, Babe's marriage was deeply unfulfilling. Bill's indifference and narcissism left her yearning for emotional connection, which she sought in friendships, and her devotion to maintaining her role as the perfect wife. Even as she suffered in private, Babe's outward persona remained unblemished. She was known for her unshakable poise, a trait that captivated her contemporaries, including Truman Capote, who famously remarked that her only flaw was that she was too perfect. This drive for perfection became both her shield and her burden, shaping a life that appeared dazzling on the surface, but was fraught with quiet despair. Through her dedication to maintaining her public image, Babe became an icon of her time, but the personal cost of that image would leave an indelible mark on her legacy. Beneath Babe Paley's impeccable veneer lay a profound sense of uncertainty and solitude, feelings that found a temporary refuge in her friendship with Truman Capote. Long before Capote became infamous for divulging society secrets, Babe believed she had discovered a kindred spirit, someone who understood the hollow nature of high society life and offered a sympathetic ear to her most private confessions. In moments of despair, she confided her worries about Bill Paley's extramarital affairs, hoping that Capote's wit and keen emotional insight might provide the empathy she desperately needed. As Babe Paley's friendship with Truman Capote deepened, it became a complex and often paradoxical bond. Truman, with his magnetic charisma and razor-sharp wit, offered Babe the companionship and understanding she craved amid her lonely and unfulfilling marriage. He lavished her with praise, celebrated her style and grace, and treated her as the queen of his self-curated social court of swans. For a time, Babe felt seen and valued in ways her husband, Bill Paley, rarely afforded her. Truman became her confidant, the one person to whom she could pour out her insecurities, frustrations, and the pain caused by Bill's endless affairs. However, Capote's charm masked a darker tendency, a voracious appetite for scandal and gossip, which he gleefully used to fuel his social currency. Truman's fascination with Babe wasn't purely about affection. It was also about collecting the intimate details of her life, details that would later emerge, barely veiled, in his writings and dinner table anecdotes. The closer Babe brought him into her private world, the more she unwittingly handed him ammunition for his literary ambitions. He began to treat her life as a source of inspiration, reworking her most personal struggles into thinly disguised characters and stories, much to her eventual heartbreak. When Babe reached a breaking point in her marriage to Bill, considering leaving him to escape his narcissism and serial infidelities, it was Truman who became her greatest obstacle. Rather than supporting her desire for independence, he rationalized her suffering as a necessary sacrifice for maintaining her position in society. Truman likened marriage to a career, insisting that being Mrs. Bill Paley was her ultimate role, a performance she had been groomed to perfect. To him, abandoning that role meant stepping out of the limelight, an unthinkable loss for someone who symbolized high society's idealized image of beauty and refinement. Some speculated that Truman's advice was rooted not in concern for Babe's well-being, but in his self-serving need to keep her within the glittering world he so adored. Babe's marriage provided him with continued access to the elite social circles he craved, and a steady stream of material for his stories. By persuading her to stay, he ensured she remained a central figure in the glamorous but treacherous tableau he sought to capture in his work. For Babe, this betrayal was deeply personal. What she had hoped would be a refuge from the isolation of her marriage became yet another source of pain. Truman's manipulation of her confidences for his own gain underscored the transactional nature of their relationship, leaving Babe to grapple with the realization that even her closest ally had his own agenda. Through it all, she remained outwardly composed, adhering to the role of perfection that had defined her life. Yet inside, her growing awareness of the exploitative nature of her closest relationships deepened the loneliness she had always tried so hard to conceal. Some who knew Babe speculated that Truman's advice was rooted less in genuine concern for her happiness and more in his fascination with the shiny veneer of wealthy socialites. By encouraging her to stay, Truman preserved access to their exclusive world, a wellspring of material that, in time, would feed his greatest literary ambitions. Although he claimed to be her staunch ally, this betrayal, where her most private fears and revelations became fodder for his tales, exposed the tenuous foundation of their alliance. Through it all, Babe struggled to reconcile her longing for real emotional support with the realization that, in the cloistered realm of high society, genuine friendship was often overshadowed by ambition and the relentless pursuit of social standing. Truman Capote's most devastating blow to Babe Paley arrived with the publication of his short story, La Côte Basque, 1965, which first appeared in the November 1975 issue of Esquire. The piece was intended to be part of Capote's unfinished novel, Answered Prayers, and it featured thinly veiled portraits of many high society figures he had once charmed and befriended, Babe chief among them. Within its pages, he divulged private information Babe had entrusted only to him, weaving real-life incidents of Bill Paley's infidelity into a salacious narrative. One particularly scandalous vignette recounted an episode that could be traced directly to Babe's own marital struggles, a betrayal she had shared with Capote in strict confidence. For someone as reserved and image-conscious as Babe, Capote's public airing of her deepest secrets was nothing short of a personal catastrophe. Known for her unwavering composure, she suddenly found herself thrust into the center of a tabloid maelstrom, her name effectively synonymous with the infamous sheets that Capote referenced in his story. The shame she felt was compounded by the realization that a man she had viewed as her closest confidant, a writer she had invited into her home and introduced to her refined social circles, had now capitalized on her unhappiness for literary and personal gain. When Capote attempted to contact her, hoping to salvage the relationship or at least defend his creative choices, Babe refused any sort of reconciliation. In her eyes, his indiscretion had destroyed the bedrock of trust she once placed in him. Though their friendship had experienced highs and lows, often revolving around his appetite for gossip, this time the damage was beyond repair. The publication of La Côte Basque 1965 signaled the end of their once intimate bond, and for Babe, it was a bitter reminder that in the glamorous world she inhabited, even the closest friendships could founder on the rocks of ambition, ego, and betrayal. During the final chapter of her life, Babe Paley faced a protracted struggle with cancer, a test of endurance that underscored both her remarkable poise and her deeply ingrained determination to appear flawless. Diagnosed with lung cancer around the mid-1970s, Babe underwent multiple surgeries, including the removal of a section of her lung in 1974 and further procedures in 1975 when the disease recurred. Despite her deteriorating health, she refused to relinquish her impeccable routines. Each morning she carefully applied her makeup, layer by layer, concealing the gauntness and fatigue that crept over her as the cancer advanced. In the final moments of Babe Paley's life, William S. Paley's sudden desire to be more attentive marked a stark departure from his usual indifference. For much of their marriage, Bill had been primarily devoted to building CBS into a broadcasting empire and cultivating his own social prominence, showing only sporadic interest in the emotional needs of his wife. Though he was capable of displaying the charm and charisma that had initially attracted her, it often appeared that his primary focus lay elsewhere. Once Babe's battle with cancer became undeniable, Bill seemed compelled to reassess the way he treated her. He visited more often, ensuring she received first-rate medical attention and appearing, at least outwardly, to feel genuine concern over her frail condition. Yet the sincerity of his motivations was difficult to gauge. Given his past affairs and the narcissistic tendencies he was known for, some question whether his change of heart arose from guilt or from a desire to preserve his public image. Whatever the cause, it came too late to undo the years of emotional distance that had defined their relationship. Babe, having withstood her husband's infidelities and self-centered behavior for so long, found it difficult to accept his newfound efforts. She had endured repeated betrayals, compounded by Truman Capote's public airing of her private life, and had long felt isolated in a marriage that seemed driven by appearances rather than affection. By the time Bill sought to demonstrate genuine care, she had neither the trust nor the willingness to reconcile. She refused his attempts at comfort, choosing instead to confront her mortality on her own terms. For Babe, guarding her final days from Bill's renewed interest was an act of self-determination. While her physical strength was waning, her resolve to maintain control over how she faced death remained firm. With both Bill and Truman distanced from her final moments, she underscored her desire to forge a path free from the constraints of a marriage that had done little to nurture her spirit. Her decision was a stark reminder of the discrepancy between the shimmering image of a glamorous couple and the more complicated reality behind closed doors. It stood as her final statement on a life marked by outward perfection and inward loneliness, a final attempt to reclaim her own narrative before illness claimed her completely. Even as her strength ebbed, Babe insisted on preserving the social graces and understated elegance for which she was famed. Her dedication to graciousness was evident in the way she received visitors, dictated plans for her funeral, and made every effort to maintain the polished image she had carefully honed for decades. Ultimately, her death on July 6, 1978, not only marked the end of her private battle against cancer, but also signaled the departure of a singular figure in American high society, one whose unwavering commitment to style and decorum shone through, even in the face of profound suffering. Babe Paley took great care in orchestrating her own funeral long before her death on July 6, 1978. Drawing on the same meticulous eye for detail that had defined her social life, she carefully chose everything from the guest list and seating arrangements to the floral decor and menu, ensuring that her final gathering would reflect her hallmark grace. Her passing at age 63, the result of lung cancer, took place in Manhattan, and those close to her recalled how every aspect of her farewell carried her signature style. Following her death, Babe was laid to rest in the Memorial Cemetery of St. John's Church in Locust Valley, New York. There, in 1990, William S. Paley, her husband, with whom she had shared a tumultuous yet high-profile union, was also interred. Truman Capote, once her closest confidant, but ultimately estranged, was notably absent from the services. Although rumors circulated that he privately mourned the loss of his perfect Swan, he was never invited to bid her farewell. In the end, Babe's carefully curated funeral stood as a final testament to the discretion and poise that had defined her life, capping a legacy in which appearance and elegance were paramount even in her last moments. Babe Paley's story was marked by dazzling victories, profound sorrows, and startling betrayals. Yet in the face of every trial, she remained the epitome of composure, faithfully embracing the role her mother had sculpted for her since childhood. Her death in 1978 was more than just a personal loss. It signaled the closing of an age defined by stringent social expectations and an unwavering pursuit of outward perfection. Through her life, we glimpse both the allure and the cost of a world that demanded flawless elegance above all else. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us create more content like this.